don't really have an answer to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that gets them thinking. It gets them thinking like, do I have the full truth?
Yeah.
And then I like to well, the Catholic Church says this, and I might throw a little council quote, something like that. But I'm like, this is clearly defined by the Catholic Church. So, and it works with Mormons too. So,
all right, let's start. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard the Flying Giuseppe. Today we have Joshua Spiedel with us today. We'll be talking about practical evangelization in the real world. It's something I don't feel like it's covered enough, at least on the, blue collar, like 9 to 5 level. The points I really want to stress today is that you don't have to be a Trent Horn to go out and effectively evangelize. You can use your own natural talents to bring others to the faith, and that's exactly what we're called to do. And through conversations we've had with Joshua, I feel like he has a lot of practical experience. So we're bringing him on today. Joshua, can you just kind of give the folks at home a rundown of like kind of who you are and like what you plan on doing here at Benedictine, and why you might be qualified to be on here today talking about evangelization?
right. Well, my hometown is Billings, Montana. I have been homeschooled all the way up until college, and in college, I picking a major, and I'm deciding between English, because I hear it's a very commonly spoken language.
Yeah.
And also maybe theology. I don't know.
Mm.
But the reason why I'm here, evidently, is that people like what I have to say.
Yeah.
And I've been in a lot of evangelization conversations, both good and bad, where I was ready, where I wasn't ready, and yeah, evidently that
It got you here today?
qualifications. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I've been able to kind of talk people myself through a journey. I've had a few people where I would start them on the journey, and then I wouldn't hear back from them for a while. And it's like, here are the Easter converts this year, and I'm like, why the heck didn't he tell me that he had converted?
Oh.
So very, very, very cool that I was able to be involved. So my goal also out of this conversation is to kind of realize that everybody's different, and there might be different ways to approach it. So like maybe we can also talk about tailoring our approach based on who we have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I really like to start this off is kind of the problem. So I kind of feel like, and I've been very vocal about this on campus, like I'm hugely against the separation of church and state. I think that we all here are. I think that the separation of church and state goes beyond just the government not endorsing a religion. It's also the separation of one's faith from one's professional career. I think we got to this point where everyone started like compartmentalizing everything. Okay, my church stuff is over here. Even some people can divorce their moral beliefs from that as well. And then my professional career is over here. I don't talk about that kind of stuff because it could hurt me professionally or might harm someone's feelings. And so, especially with the from the Boomer generation, Gen X, and the Millennial generation, there was this saying that went around. It was like, at the dinner table, you don't talk about politics, sports, or church.
Yeah.
I think that that's the 3 ways you can like destroy society if you're not talking about.
Well, except sports. Keep it to yourself. Whoever your fan is, I don't really understand that whole method. Like, whatever. Just
if you're
I'm not big into sports,
Yeah.
I'm glad your team won or lost.
Well, some people are apparently broken up families, so yeah, people.
That's
I
great.
think the issue is it's because we're not talking about this stuff. That
We need to acknowledge Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think part of this problem is acknowledging conflict, maybe? Like, acknowledging that conflict is a real thing, and it's going to happen, and not having this idealized view that, our family's falling apart because conflict just happened to come in. Like, be prepared for it. Like, basically let people know, hey, we're not going to agree on things. We might get hot at times, but, like, at the end, we're family, we're friends. We really need to be aware of and deal with conflict. Conflict will come, whether we're prepared for it or not. I don't know if that's a tangent, but I think
it's somewhat related because, again, this kind of leads into my point of, like, us not talking about it, us not being exposed to it more often. Yeah, this does come up, and it can become, like, repulsive for a lot of people. So that's kind of, like, my idea of where the problem comes from because we're not talking about it. We've had a huge shift to where now the nuns, as they call them, are the fastest growing denomination in America. But Joshua, what do you think the problem? What do you think it comes from? Like,
what are you not talking about at dinner?
Well, actually, so the vast amount of evangelization that I've done is more just person-to-person conversation. And one of the things is that most people I've met think that you got to go into it like, this is point, counterpoint, argument.
Okay.
I've tried that, and frankly, I've had no success
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
with that. I mean, there's a place for that. Like think about a public debate.
Yeah.
When you're trying to sway the audience one way or another, that's good. Point, counterpoint, things like that.
Mhm.
But usually, I found the most success with just dialogue.
Mhm.
So I was a lifeguard for a while, and
Me too, unfortunately.
and we had a really mixed team.
Yes.
I mean, legitimately, like some people, like they're just a normal, regular girl with a natural hair color, and then there's people with purple hair, and if you like wave the magnet in front of their nose, you'd be able to control it. I mean,
no, that's so true. My experience too. You'll have the nicest Christian people to work with, and then you're like, "Are you an alien from another planet?"
yeah.
All that metal stuff sticking out of you tends to make me think you're from Area 51.
Anyways, and so and usually, just like talking, getting to know one another. Sometimes religion would come up. I mean, I kind of would make a little point to mention I'm Catholic.
Yeah.
And I've talked to some atheists and talked to some non-denominationals, and even some Mormons. So,
Ooh.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I had joined you. Is you've talked to a bit of a more diverse crowd than I have, which is primarily evangelicals and then like one atheist.
Sorry, I will say I think it's really cool if you know how to talk to Mormons, because at the heart of and I'm just going to go on a little tangent, but I think this is important. Mormons need our help so bad. Like, if we can reach out to them, they're very much in this cult, and they're trying to do everything right, and they can't do anything right. And so it's just this kind of this like horrible cult at the end of the day. And so I'm really glad when we can hey, you're also the family related stuff is just terrible. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent. I think if you can reach out to Mormons, yay. Absolutely.
Well, I think that kind of leads me into one of my points here. Mormon evangelization is actually quite effective.
Yes.
They are one of the best at evangelizing. It's simply because they go out and they do it.
Well, it's person to person, really. It's like a team of two people. They come to you and they talk. And I don't know. I've been thinking for a while. I just want to sign up one of the forms and just have a Mormon come to Benedictine and get a bunch of students to just talk to them. Like, hey, we're not. You should come join the Catholic Church. We're great. And wear the ties and everything.
There's a Church of Latter-day Saints, St. Joseph's. We actually work on that. But
we should. You know what? If the Mormons are doing what Catholics should to some degree maybe go reach out to the Mormons.
maybe
Invite them to church. Tell them how welcoming it is.
Yeah.
Maybe invite them to the ordinary, because flat mass may not be this idea.
Anyways,
Sorry.
don't worry about it. As I was saying, and so I've noticed is that a lot of people think Catholicism is weird. And that's not really false, I mean, there's a lot of things that it's kind of hard to understand.
Yeah.
And so,
Some people are just weird.
obviously there's the generic questions like, why do you guys worship Mary?
Yeah.
Or why do you guys have these weird, people who live by themselves called priests? Things like that.
Yeah. The idea of priests will kind of drive some people. They're like, especially with this whole thing of maybe there's a lot of distrust because of this whole culture of if you're not going to get married, then you're a weirdo. Because of the maybe this is tangent, but maybe because of the horrible movement of and so we don't understand celibacy. We just think, oh, maybe they're up to dark things.
Yeah.
And I definitely think there is some Protestant fear of Catholics, priests. They've got to be up to terrible things.
Yeah. So when you tell people you're a Catholic, what kind of you kind of mentioned some of the reactions you received, but what are you pressed on most? When you say you're Catholic, what is the first thing that they normally ask you about?
The first thing that they normally ask me about? I mean, usually it's about Mary,
Mhm.
obviously.
Interesting.
And because like I said, that's the generic Protestant question, why do you have Mary? And the next one is why do you have the Pope and all this? And so like I said, I always keep it very conversational, very, very informal. And also, I make sure to ask them some questions too, because otherwise it's just hey, here's the Catholic Church, take it or leave it. I like to ask them questions too. I mean, that's what makes it a dialogue. It's a back and forth. But so when they usually ask me about Mary, I usually go for a very, very short and simple answer because we're working, right? We've got a schedule, and so I always like to say, well, why do we love Mary so much? Because Jesus loves Mary so much.
Yes.
Who is going to argue with that? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's so true.
and so then another point I always put is that you do know that she kind of carried Jesus around for 8 months. Like, does that not blow your mind?
Yeah.
You know, and so they always are like, oh, okay, you know, the Jesus thing, loving Mary so much, that's always great.
Yeah, because they kind of like, Jesus loves us, but then it's like, yeah, he had a mother, and there's something special about that.
The second thing about Mary that I always mention is that when Catholics say prayer, we don't exactly mean worship.
Yeah.
So Protestants, they don't have the Mass. They don't actually think of the Mass as worship. They think praying is worship. And so they don't have anything to differentiate.
That's very interesting. I never thought of it. So are you saying for them, prayer is only to worship?
Prayer is only to worship.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
equivocate.
So the whole idea of us just supplicating, to them, that's just like, you're praying, you're worshiping, prayer. That I've never thought. That is just like kind of blows my mind.
The distinction to be made is, you know, adoration and worship, and usually prayer would be considered adoration, in my opinion. Now, however, worship, as it's classically defined, is actually a hierarchy of like things you place in importance. So, I guess in a way, you could say we do worship.
Well, I think that's
But
that
is a very dangerous.
Welcome to the English language. It can be very ambiguous, and I think that doesn't help. Like, I love Latin because Latin is so precise. Like, the way we categorize this, it's dulia, hyperdulia, and then whatever the word is in Latin for worship. So I think it's a better word to use. The better English word to use is honor. There are different stages of honor. There's like this general honor that we award to the person who has won the battle, and is now in heaven. Then you give a whole nother kind of, there's even more honor to the one who like bears Christ. That's just, and then is so aware of the passion, but then like says the absolute yes. Like she has such a clear mind at the Annunciation. She can see what's going to happen in the passion. She knows, and she goes yes. Like that. You at that point you're like a super soldier. And then there's obviously the worship that we give to God because He is the reason we exist.
Yeah, and worship involves sacrifice. That's where the true distinction comes in. That's where we have the Eucharist. So yeah, that's definitely, it is a very important distinction to make. Usually when I tell people I'm Catholic, so I'll try to do the same thing you do. Like we'll start talking about theology, and then I'll be like, "Oh yeah, I'm Catholic by the way." Usually it's followed by silence. And we just stare at each trying to look down somewhere, and they're always like, "So, what do you think about this?" And I always it's always confession, sacrament of reconciliation. That is why you get pushed on the most.
Yeah. One thing that definitely happened the last couple of years is, love him or hate him, I think, especially the debates, that's brought a new image of what the Catholic looks like. You may not agree with him, but at least he's not one of those weird Catholics, you know what I mean? He kind of brought a new image. So I think that helped because I kind of saw this kind of like thing where Protestants became a little bit more like, oh, Catholics are Christian, which has been a big area of contention. They thought we were too weird to be Christian, whatever that means. And I've seen a big divide where, like, especially in the South, they're becoming a little bit more like, hey, maybe Catholics aren't as weird as we thought. I don't know. Maybe that's just me seeing it, but I have noticed that, like, since some more normal Catholics have become more of, like, big public figures, it's like, oh, they're not weird. They're not aliens. They don't eat you people. Or whatever
Those are
Protestants
things
think.
to, like, clarify.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Joshua, have you had, like, success with anyone?
Success?
Yeah.
I can't say that I've actually, like, seen it to a point where somebody enters the Catholic Church, but I can definitely say that I have given people things to think about. And that's really all I can hope to do.
Planting the seed.
Yeah, planting the seed because, it's kind of a mark of pride, you think, that I could save somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that I could turn them into a Catholic and then save them. And so, the apostles, they view themselves as vessels of the Holy Spirit. Like, I should view myself as the same. And so that's what I aim to do is to get them thinking.
Yeah.
Really.
And then they start asking the priests sometimes. And have you has someone you've talked to like come into the Catholic Church? Whether that's you were part of that or not?
That's kind of what my question was.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So,
Like I said, I've definitely, I have to check in with this person when I get back home. But I have encouraged somebody to go to a Catholic mass.
Very. That's a.
And so, once you go there, I mean, it's kind of like, you got them.
Yeah.
And also this person, I actually handed her a miraculous medal as well.
Oh, yeah.
So I always keep 2 miraculous medals. One on my scapular and one on my rosary, which I carry around everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I took the miraculous medal from my rosary and I gave it to her.
Yeah.
oh wow.
And so that I always that is just I've heard about so many conversions to the miraculous medal.
Oh, yeah.
I always carry one specifically for that purpose.
That's kind of the answer. Is I think just opening them up to the idea of even like our Blessed Mother, because in the end, we're not unless you kind of have like this thing where they really really look up to you and it's like very close. It can be hard to bring them there, but once you open up to Our Lady, once you get them hooked on Our Lady, if she gets the smallest way to grab onto somebody, she pulls.
Mm-hmm.
She really, really,
Yeah,
really.
as Saint Dominic once said, if I can get a rosary around the neck of a heretic, they shall not escape me.
Yes. The rosary is so much the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, like the hardest ones to really convert and have dialogue with are the ones that have this more, I wouldn't say indifferent approach, but this idea that denomination doesn't necessarily matter. God sees my own convictions, and I'll be saved based on them.
Mm-hmm.
How have you ever had that, and how do you approach that?
So when it comes to this indifferentism, I always stress the fact that this world is sinful, right? This world is very, very hard, and I was like, the Catholic Church, it's the best, right? What don't we have?
Yeah.
In a sense, and so I'm like, why wouldn't you want to be armed with every single grace of God?
Yeah.
And that's when they start asking me questions like why is Catholic Church better? And the dialogue continues, but I like to stress that this whole, and then if they go to faith alone, I mean there's ways to deal with that.
Yeah. For sure.
We probably all heard that.
So I don't know about your experience, but for me, when they're indifferent, they almost seem a little bit like they're not going to be easy to convince on. Oh, you need to become a Catholic denomination or whatever. But one thing you can definitely open up, explain the Blessed Mother, explain something like that, and get them, because sometimes they're not denominational because they take the good from everything else. And I think Our Lady is the answer. And you can really open them up to the idea of, hey, Mary's your mother too. And I think just give them Mary, and Mary will take care of the rest.
Yeah. I had a very long dialogue with a very, very good friend of mine. He is non-denomination. We actually, I would go over to his house every so often. We'd always go on a walk. Right behind their house is a big golf course. So there's like these little concrete trails to take. And we were talking about his journey and how he said he started feeling God more outside of church when he was like doing like community service and stuff than when he was actually in church. But he said that he's like, I want more.
Yeah.
And I was like, and how do I not bring up the Catholic Church? But we had I think we talked for like an hour and a half or something like that. It was absolutely beautiful because we ended up like getting lost in this whole network of trails.
I love that.
We were so into it, but it was mainly about it was definitely about faith alone. And then Solus Scriptura was like another one. It was great though. I obviously didn't like convert him, but I do think I thought him to, like, as you said, Jim's like think about stuff. And he did ask some like really good questions. And I really like, because a lot of the experience I have is that they immediately jump on the offensive of like, I'm going to convert this person.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that too. I'm not gonna lie. I've done that too. And that to me is a huge mistake. You just learn.
I don't know, like if they're looking for more, without even saying you're Catholic, just go into what the Eucharist is, or Blessed. Sorry, I'm bringing up as you can tell, I really guess I like the Blessed Mother, or the Eucharist. Just explain what that's like. Like even without really getting into it, you can just explain like, I really think this, and then try to get them. I think I heard that the definition of dialogue, which I think a lot of these have to be, is this where you come away from a conversation changing something about your opinion. Whether it's, oh, I need more proof to hold this up, or, oh, he had a really good point. So, like acknowledging where they get it, where they have something right, because sometimes Protestants tend to be very, very charitable, and we Catholics can suck at that, and that's not helping our cause.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I'll go, wow, the Protestants are much better than we are sometimes.
Yeah.
Not because of what we have, but because of how we treat what we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
About Protestants being really good at evangelization.
Very
Yes,
incredible
yes.
with that. I would. Here's what I would ask. I would say that talking about methods of evangelization. Have you yourself seen what you would consider like bad evangelization, or what do you consider to be bad evangelization? Like, what have you seen the Catholics do that like we should definitely stop doing, or even prescribe some methods that you believe are, and you kind of already have, but
Whether it's through online, through big talks, like maybe even something that's very widely spread, like, I don't know, you can bring something up. Like the whole rad trad versus glad trad kind of thing is, I think, a decent part of this too.
Well, first things first is that I don't really go online very much, and I haven't really heard of somebody who was like, I just Googled this and it changed my life,
Yeah, that's so true.
More along the lines, maybe I've heard, maybe somebody be like, oh, I Googled this and the Catechism of the Catholic Church had this answer, and so I started reading the Catechism. Okay, sure, that's
That's not as common.
But yeah, so as for bad methods, so remember that I brought up this argument, that people were, point, counterpoint, argument, things like that. It has its place and purpose. But I've seen to the point where I've seen two guys go at each other, just like, repent sinner,
Yeah.
And so here's the deal: is that once you go on an argument, argument, if you go to the root of the word, literally means beat down.
Oh.
And so you're trying to prove your point, and yeah, I've never heard of somebody who was like converted from an argument like, hey, I got absolutely floored by this Catholic, so I'm joining the church.
I have no choice now.
You know what I mean?
We very rarely have that level of humility, even as Catholics.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one time I was talking to a professor here on campus, and he said, if you must argue, your point, the point of the conversation is not to prove that person wrong.
Yeah.
It is to prove yourself as rational.
Yes.
Because once they view you as rational, there's a chance you're right.
Yes. No, I think the best, debate is a good forum to kind of strengthen the weak. But if they have to be already convinced. It's very hard to walk away from a debate and be convinced of the other side. You can start to, if you're open, I think that's very important. But I think the real, at the end of any debate is you come on and you're like, this side, how could they possibly believe this? There's no way they sanely believe this. And then you come off and you're like, you know what? That guy was kind of sane. That guy had some really good methods. Maybe I need to look in this topic. Honestly, I don't know if it's okay to bring this up. My dad did a very, very good debate on creationism versus evolution, which is a whole topic of contention. How could you possibly, I hear a lot of people, how could you possibly believe in evolution, whatever? And the host of that whole thing walked away, and a year later he goes, I was at this debate, and I was so convinced the other side, and then I just realized how sane the kind of evolutionary, God creating but then using the evolutionary process was. How reasonable that was, that I've actually switched my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the best, that is the most, I think that's the only time I've ever seen that in a debate where, and I guess my dad can convince people. Yay!
Yeah.
My dad's very good with debate. So.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that
Not at all related, maybe, to...
that's fair enough. He did bring up debates. But we talk about having good methods of evangelization. Obviously, you develop that through experience, but also by following someone's example. And we can look to the saints as the greatest example. So is there any saints in particular that you look to as really effective evangelizers that you want to embody?
St. Francis de Sales. I love that saint so much. So he actually was one of the people who made this statement popular. You'll catch more flies with a spoonful of honey than a barrel full of vinegar.
Yeah.
And he is also known as the gentle doctor. And so he And he went into cities that threatened to stone him to death, and he came out with a crowd of Catholics. I mean, this man, I love this man so much, and I love his introduction to the devout life as well. And so,
I feel like a good area, because I think at the end of the day, especially probably our audience tends to be a little bit more traditional. What are some good ways to promote things in a more traditional sense? What are some really bad ways to hurt your cause? Because I think that's also an important discussion. I don't know if we already brought that up, but I think it's like, sometimes we feel like we need to even evangelize within the Catholic Church, which is true. Like, there are definitely sometimes we need to convince people that they're not on the right road. Sometimes there is a little bit of that. So how do we bring people to the beauty without making it this cold beauty?
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned bring people to traditionalism. Is the targeted audience Protestants, or is it Catholics that are sort of lukewarm?
Yeah, how do we work? I guess my question is, now that we've kind of talked about some of the ways to approach Protestants, sometimes Catholics need our help.
Yeah.
How do we approach that? How do we sometimes Catholics believe the most un-Catholic things sometimes.
Yeah,
how do we bring them into maybe the beauty of the more conservative, maybe the better word is a conservative Catholicism, in so much as it holds with the tradition in a very healthy way. Not American conservative, but conservative in that you hold the old, but you bring in what's good in the new.
Right. So
that's a very long question.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. So yeah, I've talked with a wide range of Catholics. Some of the more rapturous, some of the more lukewarm Catholics. So the way that I usually like to do with lukewarm Catholics is that I'm like, hey, going to daily mass. Do you want to come with?
Yeah.
Then even if they don't say yes, they're like, oh, maybe I should go.
Yeah.
I like to keep working on them like that. And they're like, hey, I'm going to adoration. Maybe you want to come. And maybe I start mentioning these facts. Did you know that if you pray the rosary every day, Mary promises that you won't die without the sacraments?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So usually lukewarm Catholics are a victim of poor catechesis.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if you are properly catechized,
yeah,
then why shouldn't you be a source of catechesis for them?
And I think there's bad catechesis on both sides. There's this really beautiful, where you view God as kind of Father, and then there's this kind of even kind of Muslim bent in Catholicism. I tend to see more with, I don't know, this is probably an interesting thing, more with this very extreme kind of more scrupulous. I used to be very, very scrupulous, and I guess my question is, how do we work with people who are scrupulous? Because sometimes you just need to tell them to knock it off. That's not the way to do it. You're focusing on yourself. But sometimes it comes from this bad catechesis of, oh, God's out to get me. How do we bring this no, he's not, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
No, you can be a reasonable human being. No, you can do your laundry on Sunday because you didn't have time to do it another time. Sorry, this actually came up.
Well, I always like to bring into the conversation the virtue of prudence and temperance.
Yes.
The virtues of prudence and temperance, temperance and prudence in all things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever somebody's like, you should do this, you should do that, and I'm just like, I think we should relax today.
Yes.
I hey, guess what? I'm only human.
Yeah.
I can't do this. And sometimes even I praise them. Something. Hey, I'm super glad to go to adoration every day. I definitely would if I could.
Yeah.
And then also, I love to bring up St. Francis de Sales.
Yes.
I'm like a St. Francis de Sales fanboy.
Well, that's what we need. And again, God wants a joyful saint. There is a real value to penance and all that stuff. That's very important. We have a season for that. But at the end of the day, you've got to be joyful. Because if you're a sour saint, God help you, please. Don't go anywhere near catechesis.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting way you phrased that question, saying that you see this kind of like a Muslim side to Catholicism. I think that's definitely and there's probably something to that. And there's actually a word that they have for this. It's called deontological. Deontological.
So how would you define ontological?
So kind of ontological is being.
Okay.
Deontological, and it's referring to Catholicism is doing things because, God told you to. Or do something because, hey, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
The opposite side of this,
Yeah.
which is what Vatican II was trying to promote, is called the teleological. And
Sure.
that is that I am obeying God and following Him because I want to establish a relationship, because I want meaning and happiness. in my life.
That is so important. That's why Protestants often get lukewarm Catholics on, do you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? That is a legitimate question. Do you or do you not?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people will leave the church, whether for good or bad reasons, because they don't know what a relationship with Jesus looks like. And so they get into this kind of possibly pseudo, possibly real. I'm not saying that, even some Protestants have a lot of Protestants have a very legitimate relationship with Jesus Christ. They just, sometimes they're in this like hole where they know what the truth is, and they just need to be brave.
Yeah, and I'd be interested to ask both of you this, because my own experience, I have generally omitted this. But part of the teleological worldview is that you stress that relationship. You don't stress so much the heaven and hell part. And I think it's also kind of important to bring that in. Like when I've been in my dialogue, I've hardly ever, especially with atheists, I've hardly ever brought up heaven or hell.
Yeah.
I think I've like maybe once.
That's kind of they already basically don't believe those places exist, and so it's going to be a little hard to convince them on that. I think there's easier places to go, and I want to get Josh's opinion. Heaven and hell, very important part of this, but also you want to be in heaven with somebody that you love.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, have you ever brought up heaven and hell in your discourse?
Well, I mean, usually the Protestants and Lutheran Catholics, they're all like, oh, yep, heaven and hell is real. But when it comes to the sinning part, sometimes like, oh, I'm still faithful, or oh, Jesus understands.
Yeah.
To a point where I'm like, well, then I have to ask them. So, like, if your mother tells you to do the dishes, and you say no, do you really love your mother? And so I'm like, why in the world would you, if you love God so much, why in the world would you sin against Him then? Why in the world would you disobey Him?
Yeah.
And so that usually I find it is pretty effective, because they have their personal relationship with Jesus Christ, right? They love Him in their own words.
Yeah.
And so then you have to say something along the lines of, prove it.
Yeah, I kind of brought this up as well, like with this, like, oh yeah, Christ understands my own personal convictions, and I'm saved based on that, and I have great personal convictions. So he falls into this like very like relative form of like thinking. I've actually been studying this. I have a whole class on evangelization, and I learned about Christian experimentalism, which originated from Martin Luther, obviously, Calvin, Kant, Hegel, et cetera, where they're like, dogma is based on like my own personal experience. That's kind of what defines it for me. And what works and what doesn't, well, that's up to me, because again, my personal relationship. So there is definitely some truth to having that personal relationship with Christ. In fact, that's what we're trying to establish. However, it can become too much where you kind of like box this in, and it's like, you might think that you're, some things that would be considered sins by the church, you might be, amended of, because, well, it's, I gotta understand.
If you truly are kind of theological in your thinking, and you want to be a son, you got to realize that what a father is. A father absolutely has things that he cannot stand. I honestly think the theological approach isn't actually that bad of an approach if we take it to what it actually is. God is a father. There are certain things He's going to throw you out of the house for.
Yeah, I think it is
100%. He's going to throw you. Not that, again, you throw yourself in hell, but we can kind of think of it like, and that one son is so rebellious that the father's like, you know what, you can't stay here anymore. No, God is 100% a good father, which means He cannot come. So I think both are good, and if you're actually true to yourself about it, you come to the same conclusion. I think a theological one is more important. It is kind of a better way to look at it. It's like, what is hell? What is suffering? It's kind of a better way. You don't see it as this like, you see the reason behind it. You see the reason behind why hell exists and stuff. From the theological point of view. I think like the other one, oh, I'm going to heaven because I was a good boy. I want a cookie.
That you fall more into like the checklist. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I did all this. I'm going to heaven, boys. Like, it's awesome. Nice.
Both are super
You need-
important,
need
and
both.
both can be. I think again, it's like you're. Yeah, and again,
I did because you brought up the internet and how you usually abstain from it, which is good. I've been doing that as well. My life is so much better. At my house I stay at, actually, there's no internet, so I have no access to it. Which helps a lot. So do you think that, because I wanted to bring up Archbishop Fulton Sheen, because he utilized the mass media of his time to evangelize thousands. His word out to like thousands and thousands of people, and I'm sure he worked many. I'm sure he produced much fruit from that. So do you think that the internet is a place we should be prioritizing evangelization, or should we be focusing in other areas?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here if I thought that the internet was completely useless and that we couldn't evangelize through it.
Yeah.
However, I do think it's important to, share certain things. Like, what's this podcast for? Like, I'm sure if a Protestant watches it, they may convert, right? But I like to view things like this more as a spiritual armory, per se, a resource for Catholics to come, and because they're going to be doing the bulk of evangelization.
our goal isn't to necessarily evangelize Catholics with this. Our goal with this whole project is to make you mature Catholics, give you the tools to go out and take that person on the journey as much as you can, because through a screen we cannot take somebody on the journey. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, you didn't.
Yeah, I think it might be. I get my vacuum documents screwed up sometimes. It might be down next days. I think it is. Whereas,
That's pretty safe.
yeah, this is safe bet. Where interpersonal relationships are like really emphasized. Now that was back in Vatican II. They did have TV and stuff back then.
Yeah.
So the church does obviously promote this, personal relationship with a person. Obviously, that's much better than like a screen. And I think this is one of the reasons why Mormon evangelization is so effective. Is because they're actually going to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what does that show? That shows conviction.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go out in my, button-up shirt and tie.
In the hot.
Usually in pretty not great
Amazing.
weather. Knock on a door, and I'm going to talk to you about something fundamental.
Mm-hmm.
I think that...
I'm going to get right to the point.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
there's something really, really strong.
I
about
do
that.
think that we as Catholics could definitely learn from that. I think we should learn from that because they're doing pretty well, the Mormons.
Yes.
And because they're just genuine people.
Oh, big families also help with that too.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Big families, I used to be part of the Legion of Mary. It was all just my family. My family did not me, but my family would do wonders. Oh, miraculous medals everywhere. Everybody would have a miraculous medal at some point because my family just had 1,000 miraculous medals and would just hand them out to everybody. Everybody loved them. To the point you'd have people coming up oh, thank you for this years ago, and okay, people and then I don't know necessarily if anybody can convert from that, because sometimes I think it's good that we don't. I think it would be bad if my evangelization rate is 100% success. We don't need to know that. We just need to keep working.
Even Christ's evangelization rate wasn't.
Because Thomas the Apostle gets very disillusioned, I think, when he goes to India and stuff, because he's his rate is not good, and then he has the vision of Our Lady, and Our Lady helps, but he was getting very discouraged. If you read the traditions about him, he's getting it's St. James in Spain. Sorry, he's getting very discouraged, and Our Lady has to come help, and hence the Compostela shrine. Something,
Yeah. So I think that one of those powerful forms of evangelization is leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember listening to Sirius XM one time. There was this Catholic radio, and they actually had for some reason it was a pretty contentious debate on putting a rosary over your rearview mirror.
What?
So people could see the rosary as they drive by, and what kind of outward signs of evangelization through example? What do you usually do? Would you draw the line? Do you think Catholics, that is something that Catholics should be prioritizing or practicing more, practicing the faith out in the public? What do you view yourself to?
So I myself, quite frankly, I like going to pro-life. pro-life, protests.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there's one thing. Like, most of those people are Catholic or Christian, so that's one thing I like to do. Another thing I like to do is someone be asking me like, "Oh, what you doing?" "Oh, I'm at Benedictine College."
Yes.
Like-
They're like, what's that like?
And then I always leave with, "See that Harrison Butker speech?
yes.
It's kind of one of our big claims to fame." And I'm like, "Yeah, that college."
Yeah, that college. Yeah. No, so like before this, it's like, oh, Benedictine College, one of those one of those like many colleges. But then it's like people pick up on that and they're like, oh yeah, you've got some conviction and stuff.
Mhm.
Like one thing for me that was interesting. I don't think this will work for the conversation. Sorry, just a little bit of data. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Yeah.
Would you ask me another question, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did. There. Time left.
It's one.
Yeah. So I know that you try to stay off the internet a little bit, but is there any like Catholic influencers you watch or you would recommend? You kind of talked about some of them before,
Mhm.
but would you mind sharing that?
Well, first things first. I love Matt Fradd.
Yeah.
I love listening to his podcasts, things like that, and he does have some good episodes, just like on debate and things like that, which is a good, like I said, point argument. But most of all, because I like it because you get to be more educated about the Catholic faith, which,
Yeah.
frankly, if you are not educated by the Catholic faith, you cannot really evangelize. Because, like I said, we don't worship Mary. Prayer is not worship.
Yeah.
It's more along the lines of spiritual conversation. So
Yeah.
if I didn't know that, then, many Protestants will still be bamboozled as to why I worship Mary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I like Matt Fradd. Another thing I like is the Catholic Gentleman. I mean, it's more along the lines for men than women.
Yeah.
I would say, but it's more like how to live a Catholic masculine life, and it's more lifestyle oriented.
Yeah.
And then this is an old influencer, but you guys already mentioned him, Bishop Fulton Sheen. I love that. I love that guy. I read his book, 3 to Get Married.
Yeah.
I would most certainly recommend it, whether you be studying for a priest, for the laity, anything, because it talks about. Obviously, it talks about marriage, but it talks about, okay, what is marriage? It's this relationship bound together by this love.
Yeah.
What is love? And so it goes into what is love,
Yeah.
human anthropology, why in the world love is lacking today. So I always...
Yeah.
I have to throw someone else in there. Mother Angelica, go through and watch her old episodes. It's really unfortunate that hopefully she can be a saint. We got to get her canonized because her whole approach is so simple and it brings so many people. Like she, I think, was one of the best evangelists of all time. The number of people she converted with her stuff. Like, she knew how to convert people through the TV screen. You just could not convert after listening to that woman.
There is definitely this growing movement online. I don't know if you guys have been following this or not. With the Catholic, just Christian evangelization sphere, just also includes Orthodox. Where you got this new movement where they're very confrontational now. They might use language.
Mhm.
They're very harsh with their argumentation. They're very no, this is how it is.
Like TFP by any chance?
I don't know about TFP. I don't know a whole lot about them, so I won't speak
Okay.
about them. But I'm referring to influencers such as let's actually make a comparison here. You got Trent Horn and Timothy Gordon.
Yeah.
Trent Horn is I would say he's from Catholic Answers. He's definitely a bit more cordial and a bit more
Yes.
polite. Whereas Timothy Gordon is he will use language, and I will say he's an excellent debater, but he's very good. I think I do listen to him a lot, but I think he's good at towing that line and drawing lines as well, being very intentional. This is what Catholics teach, and we need to understand that what everyone else is saying is wrong, and this is why we need Catholicism. Whereas Trent Horn, I think, is a bit more charitable.
Yes.
In that he's willing to, he does emphasize a lot of the good of Protestants, and Timothy Gordon has said this in public. He called. For our Protestant viewers out there, I'm sorry, but he refers to them as bucktooth Protestants. So I don't think that's
not a great way to.
evangelize. So I think that there is something. I think that there is what my main point is that I kind of brought two kind of extreme examples on both ends. I would say.
You think Trent Horn is?
I would say he's extreme, but I'd say there's much more extreme examples. I'd say he's a bit more like a middle ground.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
I would say
I like Trent Horn's style,
but I think that there is something important to this other extreme where we do need to be very like intentional. We need to be very like I'm forgetting a word, but a little bit like authoritative sometimes.
Yeah. Like, there's 100% a place to be very hard.
Mhm.
There's a place to be like, hey, cut it out, you know. But then there is also a place where there needs to be a little bit more like the gentle doctor.
Oh,
there,
yeah.
there really is. There is a place for both. And I personally, from my kind of point of view, I kind of enjoy Trent Horn's stuff because he explains things very well, and you know that the people he's trying to argue against reviewed his script, which I kind of like that he started doing that.
Yeah.
And he's got some very like. He actually gets people who like really don't agree with him to review his scripts, which I think he was not as good, and then he got a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about gentleness. St. Francis de Sales is known as a gentleman, and I was reading an article about him the other day. You know, he was actually put in hiding because you know a bunch of Protestants did want to hurt him. Like he was in an area that was not at all charitable.
He was extremely successful to the point that the Protestants,
Yeah.
like the ones who actually had some, had some maleficence or whatever.
Yeah.
They started to hate him because he was successful. He was kind. He was gentle.
Yeah. So do you know any specific examples from Francis de Sales' life where he used that like more genteelness to convert a maybe not so pleasant mob of different kinds of believers? So you brought the example of like him going in initially to like get stoned for coming out with Catholics. Is there any other stories like that?
None that come to mind. It's been a while since I've reviewed his biography and anything like that. But I have read his Introduction to the Devout Life, which is more oriented towards a Catholic lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it also has multiple chapters about how to deal with other people.
Yeah.
For example, one of them being how to dress.
Yeah.
We've seen this dynamic a little bit on campus where, there's people going around in t-shirts and mesh shorts, and there's other people going around in suits and ties.
Yeah.
And so the question is, like, who's right? And there's other people, like, there's a third kind of people that they wear capes, right?
Okay, I love the cape wearing people for a recent person. I think there's one person who
We
wears
all
a
know
cape.
that guy too.
He's a celebrity here. If you see a guy in a cape, shake his hand. He's very
Actually,
famous.
there's around 7 people. I think.
Really?
Oh.
They have a club.
Oh,
From what I've heard, they have a club. But
that's
anyways,
interesting.
No judgments there. Anyways.
Yeah.
But so he actually does have a chapter. Like, yeah, I want people to be the best dressed people. I want my followers to be the best dressed people in the crowd, but not to a point of pride. And like,
Oh yeah.
and so he talks about that a little bit. He also talks about how you should always assume the best of an individual.
Yes.
So like if you're like debating and somebody's like I debated against an atheist, and to be honest, I was floored. I was floored. I was not ready. And I mean, in my defense, it was my first year of high school. So,
Oh yeah.
before I got a little educated.
Yeah.
Anyways, and so yeah, like that guy, like he was not charitable. He thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
And so I still had to, okay, he probably thinks that he's clearing me up of something that's quite stupid. I mean, if somebody came to me saying something about some sort of sugar daddy in the sky, I mean, I think that's ludicrous too.
I try to do something about those crazy people.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so,
Yeah.
think about this. Think about Mormons, right?
Yeah.
No offense to anybody who may be Mormon, but from an outside point of view, you're kind of weird. and so, but like I said, judge the best. So when I've been talking to Mormons, I'm not going to assume that they're stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to assume, and so
Just having this place of respect. They're another human being with a working brain. We agree on something. We'll start there, and I'm going to take it in my very reasonable
you
direction.
got to think to yourself, like, you want them to like you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So as we kind of get to the end of this whole thing, is there anything you want to sum up about, like a couple of words which you want to sum up, kind of the thing? Like if you got to the end of this and everything just flew past your head, what would you say is a very important thing to just kind of come away from that?
And if there's anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't include, we can talk about that real quick.
Reason to come back for a second interview.
I don't know. Do you guys have any more questions?
I mean, I did, besides sharing some anecdotal stories, I did love how you brought up, like, getting them to, like you.
Mm-hmm.
Because and the Vatican II is very clear about this, especially Pope Francis, like, you need to be joyful. I myself have had to learn this because I used to be very antisocial, very introverted, and when someone would challenge me on something, you know, especially Mary, I'd be like, well, the Council of Ephesus says, and that's not going to help.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do that. Like, unfortunately, I do think we can get into this, I wouldn't say legalistic mindset, but you can, like, kind of flex your intellectual muscles in a way that is very vain.
I think
That's when I've learned, not that I'm, like, a good apologist, I would not ever say I am, but, you know, you start throwing around councils.
Please do not do that.
You gotta,
If you're quoting the Council of Macedonia in the year 346, I'm going to shut down.
Yeah.
Even as somebody who maybe knows too much for my own good, I don't care. Like, you are probably taking the council and misunderstanding.
Yeah.
If you're quoting, take from your own personal experience. Don't quote it, people, because chances are there's a chance they understand the passage better than you, and you'll get floored.
Yeah.
Actually, there is a way to quote councils that I found particularly effective. So I like to ask Protestants who I don't really have an answer to, and that gets them thinking. It gets them thinking, like, do I have the full truth?
Yeah.
And then I like to well, the Catholic Church says this, and I might throw a little council quote, like that. But I'm like, this is clearly defined by the Catholic Church. So, and it works with Mormons too. Questions that